think you have to.
Twilight Zone. That's cool. Alrighty then.
Did this last year.
Did this.
Good morning.
Mine is off. Yeah, mine's off too.
Technology.
So Terrell will be presenting first. We really, don't have a lot for the council meeting. So on our third Wednesday, we will have again our council meeting, but we will have the council meeting after this presentation, which will be a time for questions. We had a council workshop, lots of social media comments out there. Again, I want to remind you, we are going to have council workshops. When we have a quorum, it's open to the public. During those council workshop, there will be no question. We will follow up with this type of meeting to address your concerns and allow time for questions and provide factual information. So tonight, we will start out with Tara, and then she will open it to questions. So please wait for her to open it to questions, okay? All right, thank you. And during this, if you have comments, could you please keep them to yourself as we proceed through the information? Thank you.
Okay, so there's two agenda items for tonight. Both are discussion only, no council action. So the first one is going to be preliminary revenue estimates for the general fund only, which I'll go into more in a moment. And then the second is a historical presentation on the financial data related to the sewer fund. This is something the mayor requested that I do a presentation to council on, to bring everyone up to speed on the true financial state of the sewer fund. So first we'll do the general fund revenue presentation. I'll take questions on that, and then we'll jump into the sewer. So this is a required step that has to happen in the budget process before the first Monday in October. So we're meeting the deadline, which is next Monday. It's informational only. The purpose is to share with council what revenue projections are looking like next year so that council can consider whether they want to adopt a 1% property tax increase next year or not. Council will get the full mayor's preliminary budget at the next council meeting. And that will include revenue for all funds and expenses for all funds. You have the complete budget next time. This meeting is only on general fund revenues. So I have here for you 2024 actuals, the 2025 budget, what we're projecting 2025 revenues to be based on year-to-date actuals, and then preliminary 2026 budget numbers. The starting point is we're 3% higher than last year in total. Which is good, at least revenue is moving up. It's not substantial, and when you think about how fast costs are rising, it's not great, but at least it's not zero and it's not going down. The property tax budget that I have in here does reflect the 1% increase. It is my strong recommendation to council that that 1% increase be adopted. It is a whopping $4,300, but still the city needs every dollar it can get to continue to operate. Sales tax has gone up slightly. Again, it's not huge, mind-boggling numbers by any stretch of the imagination, but at least it's an increase. B&O tax a little bit up. We're seeing the utility taxes decrease. Still electric utility is decreasing based on, continuing effects of the mill closure. The EMS, just to point out why that revenue is not showing up here, it was included in the general fund through 2024 and then moved to its own separate fund starting in 2025. So the revenue is not disappearing, it's not going away, it's simply accounted for in a different fund. Again, we're talking only about the general fund tonight. EMS will be included in the next presentation. Licenses and permits are up slightly. You might notice that the projected revenue for 2025 is pretty high versus budget. So we're seeing projected revenue of almost 83,000 versus budgeted 52,000. That's related to the school permit fees. So that was a one-time $30,000 that came in. We're certainly not going to count on that continuing into next year. Typically, when I look at revenues, I'll say, what's 2025 look like? And I would normally project a similar amount for 2026, but because we know there's this one-time thing in there, we don't want to count on that happening again. So we've reduced the 2026 budget down closer to being in line with 2025. Same thing with grants. So the grant line looks a little bit odd with this 71,000 hanging out. That's an RCO grant. We'll have a budget amendment coming for you to add the revenue and expense for 2025, but we didn't budget for it in 25, and we're certainly not going to budget for it in 2026 because the grant is over. So that's why there's a variance between our projections for 25 and the budget for 26. There is some good news here in the other shared revenues line. So the city receives a distribution from the Department of Revenue. It's called the City Assistance Fund. It's a sharing process that the state goes through related to the state's real estate excise tax. So the state takes the real estate excise tax that they collect and distributes a portion of it back to local jurisdictions. They use a very complicated formula that's based on the per capita property tax and sales tax paid, and depending on how high or low your revenue is per capita, your distribution gets adjusted accordingly. Basically, Cosmopolis's sales tax revenue is very low. We already know that. Your per capita revenue is very low, which means you're getting an increased distribution from the state, about $40,000 more next year than budgeted in 2025. So that is a little bit of good news in the revenue picture. Charges for services is somewhat similar to licenses and permits. So with permitting and planning, there's a permit fee, which goes in the licenses and permits category, and then there's a plan check fee, which is a charge for service. So the 2025 projections are high related to the planning fee related to the school, which was about $20,000. So again, same as with licenses and permits, we're not going to count on the revenue being as high next year as it was this year because of that one-time item. We are seeing cemetery fees up slightly, so that's why there's a little bit of an increase in charges for services. It's a big percentage, but actually only $10,000. Fines and forfeits are staying very consistent, as are miscellaneous revenues. The big driver in miscellaneous is interest revenue. Again, you'll see the projections pretty high for this year, and then going down lower next year. That's reflective of the fact that we think interest rates will decline, and even if they don't, we don't want the city to be counting on high interest rates to balance the budget. So we want to be budgeting that conservatively, even if interest rates do stay high for another year or so. It would be careless to overestimate that and have the city build an unsustainable budget around numbers that are going to decline at some point. So again, in a nutshell, we're expecting revenues about 3% higher than 2025 budget, slightly lower than the 2025 projections, mainly due to the grants and school fees. I'd be happy to take questions on this topic before we move into the sewer, if anyone has questions. Okay, so like I mentioned, the mayor asked me to present the historical financial data related to the city's sewer fund. So to provide a little bit of background, I'm sure you're all aware, but to make sure we're on the same page, the city contracts with Aberdeen to provide sewer treatment services. Aberdeen picks up the sewage at the city line and takes it from there. From Aberdeen's standpoint, Cosmopolis is not different than any other customer. So they're having to provide all the same services for that sewage as they would for sewage picked up at, say, a home that's right next door to the city line. The existing contract, I should say that the contract that generated these payments that we're seeing on the screen was effective for, I believe it was a 10-year contract, expired at the end of 2023. The contract was based on a really complicated formula that factored in a percentage of flow related to Cosmopolis versus the total flow related to Aberdeen. And then it took Aberdeen's actual operating budget, capital budget, debt service, and applied this percentage to Aberdeen's budget. So with that contract, it was, one, it's unpredictable because you don't know how much capital Aberdeen's going to spend every year. It so happens in these 5 years that we're looking at, the capital expenses were quite low, so your bills were quite low. But that didn't really reflect the fact that major capital was planned and coming. So you could end up with really, really high bills under the existing contract language. The contract is based on an annual payment that happens a year late. So there's been years where Aberdeen doesn't send a bill until August for the prior year. So it's really hard to plan cash flow, and you have to be very, very diligent with cash flow planning in order to accommodate that type of contract when you don't know what the bill's going to be, and you don't know when it's going to come, and you have to really diligently watch your cash flow to make sure that you have money for that bill. And to be perfectly blunt, that just did not happen. And I'm going to show that through the numbers here. So I have to say, as an outsider, not familiar to this community, the mayor not signing that contract was the best thing that could have happened for this city. If she had signed that contract, you could have been getting bills over $1 million a year, easily. Aberdeen's building a major wastewater treatment plant. It's a huge, huge project. And your share would have been substantial, and you would have gotten hit with it all at once without enough cash in the bank to pay for it at all. So it's it is a big mess because you've been now operating without a contract for almost 2 years. But I'm hopeful that the cities can negotiate and come up with something reasonable going forward. But I first think it's important to understand how we got to where we are with the money. So I went back to service year 2019, or 2019, sorry. So this table is showing the last 5 service years under the contract. So again, the contract expired at the end of 23. The city has not formally been asked to pay anything beyond that. So the invoice totals for each year are shown. They average $288,000. There's a little bit of variation year to year. The payment year section of this shows when Cosmopolis actually paid the bill for the service year. So service year 2019 means in 2019, Cosmopolis used $264,700 worth of services. Cosmopolis did not pay any portion of that bill until 2021. And in 2021, only paid half of it. The other half wasn't paid until 2022. So you're 3 years behind. And you'll keep this in mind when we look at the next screen that shows it's not like you were hoarding cash, you didn't have cash, you were just that far behind. 2020 comes along, partially was paid in 2021, so at least only a year behind, but the bulk of it paid in 2022. We get to 2021, less than $6,000 paid in 2022. The bulk of it paid in 2023, so 2 years later, and the mayor had to pay this last bill in 2024 because there was still an outstanding balance related to 2021 when she came on that we had to catch up. 2022 started at least paying in 2023, the bulk of it in 2024, and then 2023, again, with the mayor on board, and we were looking at the cash flow and saying, we gotta get this caught up. And we did get caught up in 2024 for 2023. Now, we have not made any more payments. There's no contract. There's no contract in place. So it is absolutely true that money is owed, but how much money is owed is up for negotiation. It would not be appropriate for Cosmopolis to make a payment without a contract. So this is the history of the actual billing amounts, which will tie to the next screens that we're going to look at. So when we look at the summary financial information, this is the true cash basis reality of the sewer fund. So going back to beginning of the year 2020, we started with less than $26,000 in that fund. Brought in revenue almost 500,000, expenses less than 500,000, and an increase in fund balance. You might think, oh, everything's great, right? This fund is operating with a surplus. At its face, you might think it's okay. But keep in mind, at this point, we're 2.5 years behind. So 2020, there's $71,000 in the sewer fund. You haven't paid $32,000 from 2018, haven't paid anything for 2019 at that point, haven't paid anything for 2020. So you have a $71,000 cash balance and you owe $625,000 in outstanding invoices. So the actual true scenario at the end of 2020 was in the whole $553,000. So this is not anything difficult to determine. It should have been very obvious that there was a big problem. It just takes someone looking into it to figure it out. And you can see here, 2020, only $120,000 was paid. That's why your number looked good here. That's why it looks like you're operating in a surplus. That's not a real surplus. You paid a third of what you should have, and you're already 2 years behind. This picture continues. So 2020, 2021, it's the same picture. You have a little bit of cash in the bank at the end of the year, but you owe 2.5 years of services. 2022, same thing, a little bit more cash, you still owe 2 full years of service. 2023, we owed 2.5, this 494, you can see got paid in full in 2024. So end of 2024, the city was caught up, paid through 2023, but we haven't received a bill for 2024, we have no contract for 2024. So you have $93,000 to pay a bill for 2024, that if you look at the historical averages, it's gonna be at least 288,000, right? That's the average for the past 5 years. So even if you got a very low bill from Aberdeen, it's still going to be more than you can afford. We come into 2025, money is now accumulating in the fund. Why? Because we haven't paid Aberdeen anything yet. Not because the city doesn't want to pay Aberdeen, because there hasn't been a contract negotiated yet. So rest assured, the money is accumulating. You can see the revenue coming in. The city has done an excellent job of trying to keep its own expenses as low as possible, to keep as much cash available in this fund as possible to get Aberdeen paid up. We'll look at detailed expenses in a moment, but if you just look at the salaries and benefits line alone, go back to 2020, almost $240,000 was charged there, and we'll look at the details in a moment. 2024, we're down to $128,000. That's actions of this administration to try and trim costs and trim fat and keep this city as lean as possible. It is still a huge problem, and we don't know how negotiations, I mean, it's a negotiation, so Aberdeen has to work with the city on some level to come up with a rate. And until we know what the rate is, we really don't know how that impacts customer rates. Utilities in this state must be self-sustaining. So if Aberdeen says, sorry, Cosmopolis, your bill's $1 million a year, citizens have to pay for that. There's no way around it. So the negotiation process is really, really critical. I only have 2 more pages and then I'll pause for questions. I didn't want to inundate you with too much. This is an expenditure detail report. I know it's small. We'll go over the top part first. So I wanted council and citizens to have the details of where the money went. So these totals match the total expenses on the prior page. I broke down the salaries by position, so I didn't name any names, but we have the positions that went into each year. So senior utility worker has been a consistent position, as has utility worker. The city has had that historically and continues to. The public works superintendent was cut in 2024, so you can see roughly $40,000 a year most years, stopping in 2024, and we're no longer incurring that cost in 2025. Same with the part-time deputy clerk. This is slightly confusing because there's been position changes, but there's no longer a senior deputy clerk, and so there was a clerk treasurer. There's no longer a finance director or a city administrator. So you see those costs dropping off. Public works seasonal does continue to work in sewer, which makes sense. I'm not sure why there were these very small dollars for these other 3 positions charged in 2020, but I wanted to show them in the interest of just full disclosure here. Contract service for Aberdeen, so these are the actual amounts paid to Aberdeen in each year, which again don't reflect the true bill for that year's service. It's just whatever cash happened to be paid that year. Excise tax, this is a state B&O tax. It's required to be paid by the city. Nothing really much to do with that. Same with insurance, has to be paid. This is a portion of the annual insurance bill allocated to the sewer fund. I did not go back and review allocations for everything to make sure that they're, perfect or anything like that, but at a glance, I find these numbers to be quite reasonable. Nothing striking me as odd with that allocation. And then the other expenses line, this may be more detailed than anyone wants, but I wanted to provide it so you all have it, just a detail of what's included in other. So things like phone and internet, office supplies, fuel, the electric bill, things that have to get paid. Again, I didn't audit this, but nothing's jumping out at me as being unusual in these other expenses. I think what the real downfall was all the positions that got allocated here were very expensive, and the the city really couldn't afford it. And I think if the city had been tracking cash flow a little bit closer, it would have become apparent sooner that this was not a sustainable model. The last thing that I want to share with you is a summary of actual revenue and expenses. So if you had paid the full bill during the year that the service was incurred, what would that look like? And it's actually not bad. 2020 is a little bit of a bad year, and that your true operating income would be negative pretty substantially, but then we have other years where it's positive, and this nearly nets to zero. So in that sense, you think, well, maybe our revenues were okay. It's more a cash flow and not watching the timing of payments scenario that's the problem. And there could be some truth to that. I think the danger in it is these numbers from Aberdeen are really, really low. They're reflective of Aberdeen not spending a lot of money on capital projects in these years. So it's not fair to assume that the numbers would have continued to be so low had the contract been extended. And again, here you'll see for 2024 and 2025, we have big surpluses because we haven't paid Aberdeen anything yet. So that's all I have prepared. I'm happy to take questions on anything related to the finances of the sewer fund.
We have a question.
So what is the mechanism that Aberdeen uses to bill us? Is it a function of sewer output, or is it a function of their capital? You know, I'd imagine they got an operating expense and then a capital expense. And I don't know if that's all combined into one category, or, you know, how that's billed, I guess.
It's both. So it's a percentage of flow, the percentage of flow related to Cosmopolis versus the total flow treated by Aberdeen. So that percentage is calculated every year. It varies year to year. And then the second piece is applying that percent to Aberdeen's actual expenses for the year. So their cash basis as well. They'll look at their actual operating expense and their actual capital.
So they are kind of funding their capital expense of this improvement.
Yes and no. The best way that I can explain this is picture yourself as a normal sewer customer. If you were to get a sewer bill that was different every month based on the operating budget, you might get a bill of $20 this month, $19 the next month, $18 the next month, and then suddenly the city buys a new treatment plant and your bill's $3,000. That's what this is. It's just on an annualized basis. And that's what we want to move away from, because the reality of capital spending is cities save money, save money, save money, save money, and then all of a sudden, big project. And what you're seeing here is the rates are reflective of Aberdeen being in a money saving up for big projects phase. So your bill was artificially low. You really weren't paying anything towards capital because they weren't doing many capital projects.
So we're not funding a capital reserve.
Correct.
We're funding it real time.
Exactly,
Okay. And the
yes.
second part of my question would be, how is the city of Cosmopolis assessing us for that? Are they taking this $260,000 and whacking it up by 12 and kind of, you know, putting that against however many sewer customers that the city has, or?
I can't speak to what was done historically, but I can say, looking at the numbers, that there wasn't much of a plan in place. I can see that your revenues were going up every year, so rates were increasing. Whether that was based on, we think our bill from Aberdeen is going to be X, I don't know. I highly doubt it, looking at the numbers. Where we're at now is we have to say, okay, we know we owe Aberdeen for almost 2 years at this point. We don't know what that bill is going to be. That has to be negotiated. So we're going to have to figure out, my strong recommendation is it needs to be a flat monthly rate, whatever it is. It needs to be something predictable where it's X amount of dollars and it goes up by CPI or it goes up by a fixed percentage, so that this council can plan cash flow and plan rates to pay that bill. It's the biggest expense here. So what that looks like, I really don't know. It depends on how the negotiation goes with Aberdeen and what rate you can settle on, and how long they'll give you to get caught up on payments.
And Tara, if I might add, so you know, in our workshop, a few of you were at that workshop, Aberdeen did come and talk about history. It's important for you, the citizens, to really understand our history. They did present a proposal, it wasn't a bill, I see, you know, I read social media. It was a proposal for what they'd like. I'm representing you, each one of you. I live in this city. We are going to go into negotiations. We can't sustain what they're asking. And so we will work to get something that's reasonable and one that hopefully we all can live with.
I get a question. Does Aberdeen save a certain percentage for future capital projects? Is there a percentage number that we should be setting aside for ourselves?
I don't believe it's a percent, but they have a capital improvement plan and a funding mechanism for that. So when they do formal rate studies, their rate studies are based on all of their planned capital projects for the next 5 or 6 years, however long is covered in the rate studies, and then they back their rates into that. So yes, it's possible that Cosmopolis could use those rate studies and match your rates plus your expenses to that. I would still think that it's in the city's better interest to have a predictable fixed fee and Aberdeen
But
should
if we
come
know that
back.
they're taking X percent out of their sewer budget every year, putting
Yeah.
it aside for capital, if we did the same thing when they did something, we'd have a pot
Exactly.
to pay, right?
Yes, and that didn't happen.
Okay.
And we are having a rate study done. It's not, again, all of you should know, my staff knows when it comes to money, I find every way I can that the city doesn't have to pay. So we are having a rate study, but I am really 100% that it needs to be yearly. We need to have a fixed rate. And, you know, everything that Tara is presenting tonight, we've had lots of communication. And so that's the direction that I'd like to work with my council going forward, that we do that.
Question, now, looking at slide number 2, which is billing and payment history, do I understand we are paid in full through 2023? And we can't pay 24 because you haven't set the bill yet?
Correct. We don't have a contract for 2024.
Correct, okay, cool. So that was that question. and-
I want to clarify, I believe Aberdeen has sent an invoice, but you don't actually have a contract in place. So my recommendation, and I know the attorney's on the phone, my recommendation is not to pay that because you don't have a contract.
And we want to
I
negotiate.
agree. Okay, that pretty much settles my questions right there.
So folks, when you say, where is all the money? Do you see the amount of money that we paid in '24 that pay off '23? I hope that is clear. If it's not, please ask questions.
I think we had a question in the back first.
Did they bill us any interest on unpaid?
That would be a question for legal, and maybe Chris can chime in on that.
I couldn't hear the question. What was it?
The question is, could Aberdeen bill us interest on the 2024 payment when there's no contract in place?
Yeah, they could. I think we need to be a little careful about talking about like our negotiation potentially with Aberdeen, what they can and can't do. But I would argue that I know my opinion on that. I think they could certainly take a position that they could charge interest.
Thank you, Chris.
Dude,
We have another question back there.
So when this all comes about, because we also know that our infrastructure of the sewer lines are having infiltration from the groundwater and everything, which makes more going through to the city to manage in Aberdeen, are we going to account or put something set up for the needed stuff that we need on top of what Aberdeen's gonna bill us for maintaining and getting our infrastructure in order?
So I can go ahead and speak to that. We are working with what is called the tech team. Again, you know, I kind of keep my pulse on the city. I try not to comment on social media, but you know, they're like, oh, we can stop this I&I. I&I is not black and white. Aberdeen did camera everyone, all of our sewer systems. Our lead, Donnie Fowler, is working, Lauren, what is his name?
I can't remember. his
But
last
he's
name,
from,
but Lauren from rural, Evergreen Rural Water.
And so he's part of that team. Stephen Duncan from the Department of Commerce. It's a pretty impressive group of people who reached out to me 2 or 3 months ago, met with me and said, what can we do to help? So they're gonna be looking at our treatment plants. They're looking at stopping our I&I, getting control of that. And if you don't understand what that is, don't hesitate to ask. So we are proactive. This administration has been proactive, trying to stay ahead of the problems that we're facing. New ones seem to arise every day, but we have a sewer committee. Terrell will be part of this when we talk about finances. We have an active tech team, qualified, not throwing things off the top of their head or their opinions, qualified people who are helping us and at no cost to this city. And Donnie is going to be working on it. Kim is part of that team. So I want you to know, we are not sitting idly by. I live in this community. We all, you know, even my staff that doesn't live in this community, they are very committed to making the city functional and at the lowest cost we possibly can do.
And related to that, if there are capital needs identified that are going to be substantial, yes, they need to be built into the rate so that the city can afford that. That has not happened. There's no
No,
evidence
I
that
know,
that's been
yeah.
happening. And yeah, we need to
Yeah,
make that
and
right.
it's not really a benefit to us to pay for Aberdeen's capital improvements. We would be better off going by a gallon price, or however they measure it.
Mhm.
Then,
Measured by the cubic feet.
yeah, but
They're always gonna share their capital expenses with us. We are just,
yeah, but they're wanting us to pay like, it's their contract, isn't it, like 20% of the capital?
That was the old contract.
Yeah, but I
But
mean,
no.
that's if with these improvements they got coming up, that if it's 4 million, our cost is 20% of it.
So again,
That would be all part of it.
when we go
No, I
into,
know, but I mean, as it sits in the old one, just because they look at what it was up here, they didn't have capital improvements, and now they're talking millions. That, just that part of it, forget about just the cubic.
and in
that goes
reality,
through.
that contract, the previous administrations, that contract should have been visited probably every year or every 2 years.
Oh, right.
And with the capital improvements, we are gonna negotiate.
Oh, absolutely, no, I get that, it's just that it's just unsustainable.
And I believe that Aberdeen understands that we can't.
one thing that I've, in this tech committee and the sewer committee and dealing with Aberdeen, they've been excellent partners in times of trouble for us, and they are not gonna try to take advantage. Yes, they got to pay their bills as well as we do ours, and so they want theirs. I have a concern that they put on a capital project that involves us, and we have no say whatsoever. We don't have a person on a board, we don't, as citizens, get to vote, their citizens get to vote on a $40 million waste treatment plant. That they have to do, they're forced by the feds, by the state to upgrade, and so they still gotta go out and vote and say, here's how much it's gonna cost. We don't get to have option of that, none whatsoever. We have no say in it at all, it just gets passed on to us. I would like to have someone from the council or from the city be part of those capital projects that will involve us. They can have them all over that don't. But if it involves our community, should have a person on that seat.
It's skin in the game.
20%.
Yes.
We have a hand up.
Does the city of Cosmopolis account for 20% of the black water that they treat?
There's different numbers. My number that I remember them telling me was 12%, that it comes out to about 12% of the total. If you take the amount of households here compared to what they have, it comes out to that number. Now,
So if anything, we should be on the hook for 12% or whatever.
but don't, again, I left here after saying a number in a meeting and it was quoted. I don't know that for a fact, but it was one that sticks in my head.
Hypothetically.
That it came, yeah, hypothetically, it came in at about 12%. And that's where our portion of what the total expense was. And we were told 7, 8 years ago, it was $25 million for the treatment plant. And they've had to put it off and put it off and put it off. And we all know costs continue to rise, and it's almost double that now when they go to do it. And it's a must-do for them. They continue to push it out through different means, but it is a must-do, and it's gonna be passed on. We're going to share in that cost. Some part of it we will end up sharing.
Anything you want to add, Tara?
And Kim, you may be closer on that percentage than
I think
yeah.
that would be closer to the number.
The
Question?
city of Aberdeen just announced that their base rate per household was gonna be $78 a house. Okay, we're paying $158 a house
So,
as a base rate. Now, does that include their 20% capital gain?
so I'm gonna let,
And or
I'm
is
sorry.
that for everything through?
so I'm gonna let Casey, who is our utility clerk and also well, many other hats, kind of speak to your rate, so
Your
people understand that.
Yeah, your sewer right now on your bill, if you pay sewer with the base and the tax, it's 8306, I believe, a month for your sewer portion of your bill right now. So that's with your base rate plus $9 and I think 908 in tax. So it's like 8306 is the sewer portion of your bill. If you look on your utility bill, you'll see your water, your sewer, everything's broke out. That's the sewer portion that the Cosmopolis citizens are currently paying.
And that's with the tax and everything. And so people often, it's surprising, being almost 2 years, when people come in and say, my water bill is da-da-da, or my sewer bill is da-da-da-da. If you really look on your billing, it is broke down. And if you have questions, please come in. Casey often explains it, or Kenzie often explains it. I refer it to them. So come in if you have a question about that.
I want to just add on, does it include the 20% from Aberdeen? Not directly, no. The bill that you pay every month goes to paying all these costs.
Yeah.
Salaries and benefits of Cosmopolis employees, plus the amounts that you pay to Aberdeen. So it's not a direct tie, it all goes into one fund and gets distributed. I don't believe past administration was planning on these 20% allocations of capital coming, otherwise rates would have been raised earlier and cash would have been accumulating in the fund to pay these big bills that we know are coming.
And if you look again at expenditures, and you look at where we are, when I say we're operating lean, we are. And we are going to operate lean. We are going to be posting a couple positions that will be part-time. There's a reason for that. And I will also speak, really finding qualified, good people is challenging, and there may be changes. That's true for many cities.
And the additional challenge that Cosmopolis has, you could make the argument, well, why shouldn't our rate just be the same as Aberdeen's then if they're treating our sewage? That could be a logical comment, right? But the fact of the matter is, you have your own sewer system too. You have your own billing staff, you have your own public works staff, you have your own infrastructure. When Aberdeen gets the sewage from Cosmopolis, they have to treat it just as they do for their own customers. So they have to recover the costs from you just like they would for any other customer, but you also have your own costs on top of that. That's just the unfortunate reality of the situation. You can't say, we're not doing billing, we're not having public works, we're not doing any of this, so we're just passing it all on to Aberdeen. You can't do that, you have your own infrastructure too. So your costs will have to be higher one way or another. It's just the unfortunate reality of relying on another city. Yes.
When you speak of sewer fund, is it one collective pot that just collects all the money that we pay for sewer and then that's used exclusively to fund Aberdeen? Or can those collected revenues be used elsewhere?
They can only be used for sewer-related expenses, and it's shown on this summary. So the money that's going in every year, it was just under $500,000 in 2020 and $678,000 in 2024, that's money directly from your sewer bills. That goes into paying only costs related to sewer, not only Aberdeen, but the city's own costs related to sewer.
Playing devil's advocate though, let's say we had a city administrator who's making a huge salary. Does he say can account for some time and then make that a billable expense as a sewer?
Absolutely, and you're seeing that happen here on the detail. So
some of this money could be collected, yeah, it's only spent for sewer, but it's funding other positions
Yep,
that.
and they're all shown
guys
here.
were-
Yep, so over the years that we're looking at, there's, for the city administrator, about $100,000 that was charged just over the last 4 years. So 30,000, 34, 27. Is it fair and equitable to allocate to sewer? Yes, that's a typical normal practice. However, if you're monitoring cash flow for all of your funds collectively, you should have observed that maybe we have too many positions that are sucking from funds that they don't need to be taking from. And we know that from seeing in the general fund, we saw that draw down, that same thing happened here. The city simply had more staff than you can afford. That's just the reality.
And one of the things that as I said, I try to pay attention to what's being posted. It's like, oh, where is the money going? And this is why I've asked Tara to do a detailed report. You can see where the money is going. When Tara says to me, no critical spending, we don't spend. We don't spend money. And we do have to pay. I have to pay a certain percentage out of the sewer, out of the water, to our staff, lean, minimal staff, to keep this city running, to be Cosmopolis.
Carl's got it.
So on your last slide, the revenue expenses on the 402 fund. So at the end of 2023, we're square with everybody. So that means what I'm looking at here, net adjusted income or loss for 24 is 489,000.
Oh, you're looking at this one. So this is,
So that should be money in the bank?
yes and no. So this is showing if you were caught up, if you had been making payments on time every year, this is where you'd be sitting at the end of 2024. But since you didn't, the reality is you only had $94,000.
Right, okay, but what I'm saying, no, I understand that, there's a liability in there too, a debt.
Yes,
But
yep.
this credit, we should have somewhere around 490 in the bank, waiting to get that bill to pay it.
No, because you were always behind. You were always using, let's see the best visual to do it. You were always using current year collections to pay for prior year services. So you were always,
So that 490, that's owed that 324,000 from the prior FY?
so the,
Contract services?
maybe, look at 2023. You had $99,000 in cash in the bank, but you owed $494,000 at the end of 23. So you were actually in the hole 395 at the end of 23. 2024 comes along, you paid up everything you owed through 2023, but you didn't pay anything for 2024 services.
Okay.
If you'd had to pay for 2024 in 2024, you wouldn't have had the cash to do it. Even if it was only 300,000, you wouldn't have had the cash to do it, you only had $93,000.
Because we paid
Because
off.
you're always
Sure,
behind.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So you have, this slide is trying to show what the true actual revenue versus the true actual expense is for the same year. So if you look at 2023, you collected 640,000, your actual true expenses were 578,000, including the actual cost from Aberdeen for that year. So that's just trying to show if you were caught up and if you were paying every year, what would it have looked like? 24 is showing this huge surplus because you didn't pay anything to Aberdeen. We don't know what that amount is yet.
Correct.
It's
For
not
24.
for 24. For cash in bank, the actual cash in bank at the end of August of this year is 432,383.
Yeah.
But you still have to draw from that amount to continue when we
You gotta
pay
pay
our employees.
24, yeah.
Yeah.
That will always be trickling down. Yeah.
Our hope is that we will be caught. We are going to negotiate and try to be on a yearly basis, not behind. And so, as I said, it's a process. It's a process.
So if we ever get a bill from them, we should be able to just write a check and
If
pay
it's
for 24.
if it's a bill that we can afford. Now,
Well-
if Aberdeen says, hey, we're sticking with the contract and we like this contract and we're going with it and take it or leave it, you could get a bill for $1 million. And no, you don't
They can
have
kiss my
that
right cheek.
at all.
I agree. Pardon my language.
So it's all about what can be negotiated as far as that bill. That's the first critical step. We can't determine what rates need to be
Correct.
until
No, I
we
understand that,
know.
yeah.
And should council consider a rate increase at this point? Probably something to ease the burden later, just to accumulate resources. Because you're not even saving for your own capital needs at all. Like, all we're talking about now is getting caught up with Aberdeen. That does not factor in the fact that you have your own failing infrastructure that needs improvements too.
You know, and I want to point out, we would have had to probably shut the doors, turn the light off, and declare bankruptcy when I came into office, in March. We had 3 other cities step up and say, Mayor, how can I help you? Aberdeen has been our partner. They've been a good partner. They know we are facing difficult times. It's not that they want to take over. It's not that they want to take advantage of us. I hope you don't take that away from this meeting, because that's not the case. Communication has been good. The dialogue has been open and direct. They have to negotiate for their city, and we as a team here have to negotiate for Cosmopolis. And we all live here. We all pay the same bills. And so I just want to stress, whatever you take away, I hope you have a good understanding of how hard we've all worked to get us where we are today. I do see some bumpy roads ahead, but I believe by mid-year next year, we will be holding our own. We met yesterday, went over this budget, and she just said, actually, Mayor, you're doing a pretty good job, because those moments, it's difficult, the weight, because I care about the city. Each one of you that are here tonight, you care about the city. You've had numerous conversations with council and with myself. And so, trust us, come to us. Again, don't take away that Aberdeen is not a good partner. They are a good partner. And we are going to have to, there's other things as we move forward. If we want to be Cosmopolis, changes are coming. I thought last night, when I was looking at what we are going to have to do for sewer rate increases, is not quite as dire as I thought. I went home, actually had a good night's sleep after meeting with her yesterday. But there will be a rate increase. It's going to happen, but not as dire.
Well, if Aberdeen were to accept what I think is a reasonable offer,
I
it's
know,
not their
and
dire, but I mean, that's just my wish list. Of
And my
course, that's a
wish list,
negotiation
too.
process.
In the negotiation process, right.
Yes, so, and yes, in the mayor's point, this is no one's fault. It was a very complicated contract that probably made sense to the people who entered into it. But it was a 10-year contract with a lot of complicated provisions that I don't think you could have really seen the impact of upon signing it. And then the billing procedure of late billing and allowing slow payments and such, that's on both cities, and it's on Cosmopolis for not monitoring the cash flow. So it's definitely not a situation where it's Aberdeen's the enemy. That's not the case at all. I think there were, it was a complicated and cumbersome contract, and that's what I would really like to see change with a new contract, is something that's predictable.
I have something I'd like to chime in real quick. As we've mentioned, infrastructure, and Councilman Skinner's mentioned the flow. On nice weather, our flow is pretty low. Aberdeen has announced, 15, 20%. Well, as the weather turns, as we've seen rain come in, it goes 25 times that amount. And they've announced that they don't know why, don't know where, don't know when, don't know how, besides that when it rains, our numbers quadruple handfuls worth over in their facility. So they see our numbers go here, it rains, it spikes to the roof, and then it rains and it rains and it rains and it rains, and then it drops back down once it dries out. So there's some things that, as the mayor said, they've, scoped our sewers, and they've tried to figure out where this inflows come, or inflow? I'm not sure on the term off the top of my head, but we're getting infiltrated by outside water, by, clean water. Aberdeen doesn't know if their sewer system can't say, that's just rain, just push it over here. That's sewer, push it over here. They're just getting large sums of material coming from us to them when our weather turns.
Question, you might be
We
able
have
to.
one back there.
Oh,
Part of that, I lived in the city of Aberdeen I lived in Cosby for about 22 years now, but prior to that, I lived in Aberdeen, and they went through their sewer system, and they cut off everybody's downspouts. That's where a lot of the water comes in. People push their downspouts into the sewer system, that's where you get your water.
and we've
And
discussed that as
They
well.
smoke tested everybody in the city of
Did you do
Aberdeen,
that to you?
and they cut them off.
They did that. When they put the new sewer system in, they said, hey, the old one will take the stormwater. We just have to block it from here and here and there and there. Well, wait a minute, it's all underground and you didn't get it all blocked. And they have the same problem we do. Hoquiam has the same problem. Montesano, this is not something that's just Cosmopolis has a I&I problem. Everyone out there does, because we all have old systems. And we, at one point in time, it was okay to put a drain in your backyard and tie it into your sewer system. At one time, it was okay to have an RV place, and you put your RV next to your house, you plugged into the sewer system again, and you take the cap off when it started to flood a little bit. Those are just things that we all have had happen, and all do. A root breaks, sewer line still flows, but it gets over here now to the storm drain system as well. And whether we want to blame anything across the street, the levels go up, they go down, the same over there as they do here when the rains and the storm comes and the amount of water that gets pumped.
Parking, tides, all of that.
It's a big job to go through here and try to rebuild the whole system. It does need to be done. It's way overdue.
They
But we
tested it
can't
in
pay
the
them.
eighties, Kim.
Huh?
In the eighties, everybody's side sewer was smoke tested.
Yeah.
Everybody had to repair all their side sewers.
Yeah,
In the
yeah.
eighties.
Yeah, I put inside
Probably
sewers
the
over
last
here, I
time,
know.
yeah.
Yeah.
You and Jeff and.
Yeah,
And I
Some
will
bumps
say, and I will say that Aberdeen did say that actually our lines look pretty good. Sometimes it's the sills that's connecting our lines, they've deteriorated, they need to be fixed. When we talk about king tides that high, and there is water, and we are working on that. And I hope this year, with the team that we're working with, we are gonna get a handle on this. I've heard, well, just cut off Cosmo over there. We know where we can shut that down. It's all coming from that. Legally, we cannot do that. And so, we have to, there's certain things that we just can't do random acts or think we have the information. We have to make sure that we are following processes and we are doing things legally that there's not gonna be repercussion for the city.
Well, it would be legal to put meters in to know what the inflow is from there.
And you and I are gonna have more conversations.
I mean, we should know what
You're a
that,
pipe
we should
fitter.
know what the industry's putting into our sewer to send to
Yeah,
Aberdeen.
and
We
I
should
just-
know that.
I just talked to someone, we'll
We
have more
had thought there
conversations.
was a
We do
meter
have a
down
meter
here by the
there.
boat launch.
We do have a meter that picks up what they send us.
Does it work? Really?
And we mark down numbers every day,
Yeah, they do,
Right.
and sometimes
No, this.
sometimes
Yeah.
it goes up quite a bit. And why? They're supposed to be shut down. Why are we getting all that?
so we are looking at
Oh,
all
that's
of
Santa
that.
cans.
We have another question back there?
Just out of curiosity, we have our own like mag meter that we see what our flow is, that we calibrate regularly to match up Aberdeen, just to make sure that we're all talking the same.
We do, and actually Aberdeen is gonna be upgrading that, so they can, basically, check it and kind of match it to what our numbers are coming in at, make sure it's meshing.
So currently, we do not have our own meter that we can vet their number against.
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
So, and for those, if you came in later, this is Donnie Fowler. He's our lead public work. He's been with us almost a year, and let me tell you, he's doing an excellent job. And I feel very privileged to have him
I'm
as part of the team.
Carly had a question? Yes, I do. Justin, I think you can answer it. Now, I know we've got a meter measuring water coming into the city. Is there a meter that measures what leaves the city too?
That would be
The sewer system?
probably more of a Donnie question on bit.
We do have the NPS flow, which is the sewage and
So,
everything that goes from the main
we're
pump.
obviously getting billed for what's coming in, and so there is a meter measuring what goes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I
It's
didn't
crazy,
know.
it's just about gallon for gallon. You know, don't know how much water you drink, but most of it goes down the washing machine, the toilet, the shower.
I
So
agree.
it all comes in and it turns around and goes right back out. That's,
Right.
when I ran for office, I said if we only showered once a week, you could probably not pay as big a bill.
However, we want to talk to you about that, Ken. I've known you a long time, buddy.
So, you know, we are gonna have a council meeting. Tara has a long commute. I offered you can stay. But, do we have any other questions before we move on to a very quick council meeting this evening? I hope this would answer a lot of your questions. This is what our meetings are going to look like. We are going to be as transparent, provide as much information as we can, concrete, factual information. Again, we are going to be having council workshops. Citizens will be able to come, we will have a forum. It will not be an answer time. It's a workshop, because this council has a lot of work to do. They need to have information provided to them. They need to study it, digest it, before they walk into a council meeting and make a decision. And then at those meetings for the next 3 months, we will have these type of discussions. But you're always welcome to come to council workshops. And please, if you have questions, come to us. Okay? Any other questions for the evening before we move into council? Mike, did you have any comments, any questions? I know you have history, you have a lot of understanding that you'd like to maybe add or share tonight?
Not really, it's
No.
premature.
Okay. Okay. All right, and so you're all welcome. We'd encourage you to stay. This will be short and sweet. Because our next, the third Wednesday is another council meeting, and more business will be conducted at that time. So at this time, if you want to take a quick break, please come back and we'll move on into the council meeting.
Couple minutes?
Yes.
Yeah.
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight it is October 1st. The time now is 8:05, and I call the council meeting to order. Clerk Grove, how many citizens are joining us online tonight?
With our other folks that are joining us, our chiefs and whatnot, we have 18 at the moment.
How many, can you tell us who is online as far as city and council?
We have Attorney Chris Coker, Fire Chief Coker, and Police Chief Lehman.
Is that,
That's all.
okay. Okay, and so I'm gonna call, roll call, Clerk Grove, will you call, roll call, please?
Councilmember Skinner?
Here.
Councilmember Wynn? Councilmember Spargo?
Here.
Councilmember Colette? Here. Councilmember Darcy?
Here.
Absent?
Councilmember Wynn is absent. He did email in to say he would not be able to join us in person tonight.
Okay. Okay. Is there a motion to excuse Councilman Wynn tonight, council members?
Make a motion to excuse Councilman Wynn.
Second the motion.
Okay. All right. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Approved, Councilman Wynn being excused from meeting tonight. Moving forward, approval of agenda. Is there a motion to approve agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any discussion? Hearing none, motion to approve agenda passes. Consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Please say your name, I'm sorry.
I'm like, is
It's me
Councilman,
and him.
Councilmember Spargo? Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I thought I
Just a
got.
reminder, please say your
Him
name.
and I.
Him and I. Is
Okay.
there any discussion?
Is there any discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, consent agenda approved. Council comments? Hearing none, we are moving on to committee reports. At this meeting, as we are going to have our third meeting of the month, we are not doing reports at this time. So we're going to move on from that, or for city officials, no mayor report tonight. New business, there is no new business at this time. And so no new business for council action, public comments. You may state your name and any comments that you would like to, that was on the agenda or workshop tonight. Are there any comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to council comments.
I am gonna take 2 minutes here. This whole procedure, you're right, we were all informed about this prior to it happening. But I was confused, and I imagine there were other people here that was confused too, that we didn't just go ahead and open and this be part of the council meeting. We were on Zoom. Have we always Zoomed the workshops as well? Okay. I would just think that we maybe take a look at when we decide to open the meeting. People came for what they thought was a council meeting, and we didn't start the council meeting. When we have workshops, we do them at 6 o'clock. And now I understand everything we did tonight. I just think maybe we need to do a different way of posting it.
And Councilman Skinner, I appreciate that. I will let you know that Clerk Grove went back and reviewed everything for the last few years. She also looked at the regulations and all of that, and this is appropriate process.
Cool.
We can discuss another one if you feel, but
I didn't figure there was
Would you like
anything.
to comment to that?
I think the time was the question,
Yeah.
because we started at 7, and it's because we didn't have anything else for the regular meeting, so we didn't want to make everyone have to come at 6 or 6:30.
And not to continue it, but the council didn't make that determination.
No, we,
Staff made that
Yes,
determination.
yes.
And that's appropriate.
Well, I'm not questioning whether it is or not. I'm just saying that it would be, again, if you want, do it 6:30, do it 6:45. Start your workshop, but I think we have council meetings at 7 o'clock is when we have council meetings. And people come and know the schedule says 7 o'clock is council meetings. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, moving on.
I fully agree with Councilman Skinner.
You're right.
This needs to be adjusted and needs to be re-advised slightly, so.
As do I.
I believe it is part of an ordinance that we passed last year or earlier this year. We changed this whole configuration, so yes, we could be moving forward.
Yeah, because I was under the
Bring it
impression,
up.
I was under the impression that that presentation was gonna be a part of our council meeting.
the reason why we had it as a workshop and not an agenda item is because if it's an agenda item, citizens can only make comments, because that's how our agenda was changed to. So we did it as a workshop so that citizens, as well as council, were allowed to ask Tara any questions. And
Great.
historically, during budget season, the budget discussions have been as a workshop until such time as action is being taken on them. So that's why that was done as a workshop, not as a new business item in the agenda.
So again, we did
Still
look at that thoroughly.
And I know it's, yeah. So if we had made it at 6:30, then maybe there wasn't a problem with it. But we couldn't make it a new business item because otherwise citizens can't ask questions, because that's how our agenda format reads.
And I guess, like I said, right now, you've seen 4 of the 5 councilmen have gave their
Correct.
opinion of what they think they were looking at or what they think. And so just, we move forward, let's make sure that everyone's involved with the process.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on, is there a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second,
All
Councilman
those in
Skinner?
favor?
Yeah.
Meeting is adjourned.
Kim, you did something good today. I know it. Sit down.
Don't say that.
Sit down.
It's been a long time since I got a brownie button. And I sure don't want a kiss.
You're not getting.